Vlad. I should start over again. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Vlad Franjo. Vlad is the regional director of the National Research Council of Canada. He's held this position for the last 2 years. And he is, let's see, he's the bio is long. I'm just going through this. He's focused mainly on the growth of one of the largest global machine tool and die and mold clusters in the region. There's over 400 SMEs here, which are
small to medium enterprises.
Small to medium enterprises. That's good to know. In the 15 years since he's we've had the top 20 machine tool and mold clients in the area, and he's grown them from, well, they've grown from 1,600 employees to over 3,500 employees, which shows the strength of this in our region. Vlad organized the emerging technologies in machine tool and die and the mold sector in 2015. In collaboration with Invest Windsor Essex, and it's grown into an annual international emerging technologies automation conference and trade show in this area. Vlad has spent all kinds of time doing all kinds of different things in tooling and machining. He is let's see here. Besides having an extensive industry experience working for various companies such as Centerline Tool, Valiant Tool, and TI Automotive, Vlad he studied mechanical engineering at the University of Novi Sad in former Yugoslavia. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Waterloo. He holds a plastic mold designer certificate from St. Clair College. And he is a licensed professional engineer. Way to go. And he's married and he has 2 children. So if you will, please give a warm welcome to Vlad.
Presentation.
Yeah, Jerry has on the screen. Talk to the computer. Okay, podium.
Do you want to
talk to the screen?
Do you want the mouse to click?
Yes, that would probably be the easiest.
Yes, in presentation.
Yeah, let's see. Well, this is in the PowerPoint. So
Slide
a little further, no, up a little more, so down to the right.
your slides, show. This is probably a PDF. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invite. I haven't been to 7 a.m. in the morning. Probably the last time was 30 years ago when I was working at the local mold shop. It is very nice. I have been to many Rotary international events. I've never been to a club meeting, and I love it. I love how it's organized. Anyway, how I got here, it's thanks to Bill. We've crossed paths quite a bit. I'll address it a little bit when I talk about an industrial research assistance program, or it's known in the industry as IRAP, and that's actually who I've been working for. It's 20 years actually this October. The role of director is recent, but I've been with IRAP for starting 2003. And actually, I've just sort of went after Bill MacArthur decided to change his career. So thanks to him, I ended up with IRAP. But Bill has been a tremendous help when the first years with IRAP to help me get going. It is a very unique program. It has been around a long time. 76th year today. It's one of the longest living federal government programs. And in those 76 years, it hasn't really changed a lot. in terms of what it does, what it's meant to do. It's meant to grow small to medium enterprises, small companies across Canada, and stimulate wealth. So that's it's a very simple mission and it's fairly mandate, and so that hasn't changed in all these years, which, you know, for federal government programs, it's fairly unique. They do seem to evolve and change quite a bit. This one hasn't. And the reason for that is we are doing a fairly good job. You'll see some numbers I'll show you, and this has been consistent for a long time, meaning that every dollar we spend with this program roughly turns into $5 of revenues that companies gain, and this includes the cost of running the program too. So every 5 years it's been sort of audited by the third party, and it has been doing well. There's been an announcement now. IRAP probably, Bill, I don't know if you may have paid attention to it. We'll be moving out of National Research Council of Canada. It's going to become its own crown corporation. It's going to be called Canadian Innovation Corporation. Probably in the next 2 years, we expect to do the transfer. So what the program does, there's, you know, financial support. That's what companies usually are attracted by the most. It is non-returnable contribution. We don't call it grants, and I'll explain that a little bit why. Advisory services, this is probably the bulk of work we do, and supporting hiring recent graduates, youth, young people under age of 30, we define as young, and link companies, Canadian companies, to global value supply chain. Those are the main 4 areas. On as far as the annual contribution, this goes to companies. The program is around 500 million, but 468 million is actually used by the companies. That's given to companies to do all kinds of projects. I'll show you a few examples. And around, well, it's not around, it's exact number. We do have a much better sonar, if you will, because it's our enterprise resource planning, sort of a system that where we keep track. Now we can tell you exactly how many companies we dealt with. It's 9,078 last year. These all numbers are from the last fiscal year. And as far as what the program does, supports roles in companies. So we support around 6,000 employees working on research and development projects. 2,000 young graduates have been hired, and the assessments, that's sort of a number of projects, it's around 1,000. We are located across Canada. There is around 110 communities, offices. That's why it's actually I'm the only director that's in Windsor. You know, there's hasn't been one. Well, mostly they are, but we do have standalone offices with advisors, and actually, the team I'm leading is very unique. For years, Windsor's been attached to Toronto or Ottawa, sorry, not Ottawa, Waterloo groups, and it kind of gets lost because it's too far. How they say that kind of Canada stops at London. It actually sometimes happens. But what we've done here to work much better is combined similar cities like Kingston, North Bay, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie into one team. And we learned that we have a lot more in common. And it's been working well. And this is about 3-4 years we've been doing that. All the red dots are the IRAP offices across Canada. What the program is really, this is the role. This is the role I've had for 18 years, that Bill had. It's industrial technology advisor. And who advisors are, it's a really impressive group of very experienced industrial, mostly engineers, scientists. There's really people from very diverse backgrounds. We try to cover all the technology fields. So that way, the services, advisory services to companies are at no cost, so they're free. And so far, that's the backbone of IRAP. That's why it's been successful. The companies seem to develop a trusted relationship with each advisor. And when, earlier in my bio, I work with these companies on numerous projects over 20 years, that's sort of what resulted in that growth. But for Windsor, it was actually, I was very proud of it. It's almost 2,000 jobs in 10 years. That's great. That's like an assembly plant. And these are all smaller companies. We're not talking about big multinationals. We have 300 advisors across Canada now. And how does it work? We actually work on site. So we will go to the company. They don't have to look for parking at university or downtown. We will visit them and kind of get to know what they do. It is a relationship. It's not just funding a project. That's we have a lot of programs. They're like a mini programs. Some for companies I usually highlight like a metal 3D printing is a technology that applies to a lot of companies here. And it's very easy for a company. There's no paperwork. They say, yes, I'd like to have a part. As long as we refer them, they will get one part just to see and touch and feel how it works. And the value is around $5,000 just to give you sort of a bit on that little program. On the basics, they're not grants. And what that means, it's not money up front. It's a contribution, non-returnable contribution that covers a portion of costs. And it's given after the costs have incurred. So every month they get a portion of costs that incurred. As far as the confidentiality, I cannot talk details unless the company agrees to publish. So we do take a pretty good care to keep things confidential. As far as eligibility, we don't focus on technology. Any company that's willing to grow, that's probably one of the most important eligibility criteria. And it's a discretionary program. It's not everyone is eligible. That's kind of determined by the advisor. So for profits under 500 employees, willing to grow, and also able to fund its share of project costs. This is where we do dig in financials, make sure they can afford whatever they're thinking of doing. So that's what is R&D? What is innovation? Anything new with product processes. They do have to be risky. I don't know if any of you, well, likely the law firm maybe. There's SRED, Scientific Research Experimental Development Tax Credits, are a much larger program. Just to give you sort of, IRAP is 500 million. That program is 3 billion, and that's a tax credit. See that's the one that's known. And the technical risk is they really get the audits and they get picky. We don't really. We do look at it, but for us, it's more of a business case that matters. To make sure whatever you envision to do has some technical risk, but also it can result in a growth. So the company will increase sales, they will develop something that they can sell. That's sort of how we determine which project's good, which one is bad. Or not eligible, not necessarily bad. As far as the money, for recent graduates, it's a really amazing program. I always had there is a benefit to the graduate, benefit to the company. The company receives $30,000. We cover 100% of the wage for first 6 months up to 12 months of their employment. Very simple, and it works well. And so far, the ones I know about, 95% of these graduates remain employed. They stay with it. And often they are kind of graduates of local universities or colleges, minimum 2-year program. We have a new program that's intellectual property assist for a company to develop. It's not to pay for a patent. It's more to develop a strategy, how to protect your intellectual property. It was shown that Canadian companies really lack skills or interest in this. And it is interesting, we are having a little bit hard time even placing this funding. We had to delay it. Why? It's a bit of a puzzle for us as well. The need is there, but we're not really forcing it on anyone yet. As far as the projects, the funding ranges from the smaller projects, $75,000 up to $10 million for large projects. And I won't go into criteria of what, and anywhere, most of the projects are not that large. It's very few. I would say majority of projects are around 150, 200,000, not more than that. Sometimes we get to and the reason for that also is what we cover is just wages. It's up to 80% of wages of employees working on a project and up to 50% of contractor labor fees. As I mentioned, criteria is there has to be a business opportunity. Sometimes if that's not well or clear, we can start with the project that just kind of looks at the technical or business feasibility. So go out, talk to some customers, see if you can sell this before you decide to invest. I don't know. The companies at the end of the day invest more. The government, IRAP, we end up being 30 to 50% of total costs. Even less for manufacturers because sometimes they have to buy a lot of equipment to do a project. And the funding goes to the point of proof of concept. From that point, the company is sort of covering the costs of commercialization. What we help a lot, machine shops are a typical example. When they're busy, they push R&D aside because they just don't have the resources. But then when they're slow, they cannot afford to do R&D, so it's a bit of a trap. So what we try when we plan a project is to make sure they plan it as they're busy and they can hire people. We'll cover a portion of costs. And that way, if we finish the project earlier, great, everyone's happy. But we do try to make sure these projects are managed as a real project, not as something on the side, like most companies will deal, smaller companies will deal with research and development. This actually, I thought I got rid of that slide. It's not that. I won't go into this either. This is the conditions. We do have an agreement. It's legal. It's fixed. We can't change it. I just maybe for your interest, how we kind of in that agreement, the company promises to provide benefits to Canada for 5 years. They have to report back to us their revenues and employment. That's how we sort of keep track of what. It's not there's no penalty if they don't do it unless they purposely. The issue sometimes if they sell the company that period, we can go back and ask for money back from the company. It happened a few times. And it's still in that scenario that it's a pretty good deal for a company. They just got an interest-free loan if they do that. And, that's not so overall, it's really favorable to the company program. I'll go quickly through some of these. The Can Export is these are Canada became part of Eureka network. Eureka is a large European research and development cluster. It includes pretty much all of the countries in Europe, not just the European Union. And Canada became an official member last year, so we are a part of it. We've been doing these international projects. How they work is the company in Canada and company in Germany will work on the same project, maybe with universities here and there, sometimes National Research Council, Fraunhofer in Germany. A little more complex, but it does work well for companies. Even if nothing happens out of a project, they develop these relationships. They may get a new market, export market. So it's been working well for. There is a program that IRAP is in the back of this program, but it is sort of, we are using our infrastructure to run. It's called Can Export. Companies can get funding for marketing activities, anything from going to a conference, as long as you don't have any customers in a particular country, that's sort of a criteria to get the funding. It's been very popular and funding used. On the international end, there's many agreements now. Canada has separate ones. Well, India has kind of paused a little now, but it's been very popular. A lot of good projects. Brazil, Japan, Germany, UK. Those are the ones we have separate agreements to do joint projects. And same model, companies in Canada and in UK work on the same project and hopefully help each other sell once they're done. We also fund organizations that, as I mentioned, that 3D printing for projects that are small to do the paperwork and plan. This is a much simpler model where, as I mentioned, company will not see paperwork. They want a 3D part. We make a referral and it gets done without them needing to write a proposal or anything like that. And there are various ones. We have 120 of them, so I'm not going to go into. And this is the tool advisors. When they come and see a company, they pick and choose whatever works for them, for the company, not necessarily for it's not that much about what works for the company. This is for the tax credits. They actually work together with this program, so the company can still claim. And by the way, that's the Bill's business. That's it's on the shred, which is kind of an acronym for it. And they do stack, so companies will generally be able to do both. Some stories that are local. Radix, this is an older one, just to give you a bit of a flavor of what companies do around here. This is a tool it's a torque gun to bolt engine block. And they had an issue when they were repairing engines. There's like 27 bolts to do. And when they were manually repairing them, the machine was tracking how many torques were applied. So the 27 could be correct. But what was happening, the operator would sometimes forget one. so they had an issue of making sure they bolted every one. So the company, and it's at that time, Radix was maybe 15 employees company. They developed the software with a camera. They were tracking that little kind of graphic on the top of the tool. And they could precisely tell where the tool is at every point within a few millimeters, which was more than enough. So Ford ended up buying this across the board. The company grew, actually they grew amazingly, 60 people in about, it took 5-6 years. And then they sold it to a larger group, which is still growing. So they're still around doing well. This story is probably 15 years old. And my most successful, and this is a known company locally, Mountain Machine. This project is just, I love it as an example. It's also very old in terms of like maybe 16 years ago. But it shows how a 200,000 R&D project turned into like every single automotive company came to buy this equipment. What is it? They used to do the washing and cleaning of engine blocks and transmission cases. There was an enormous water consumption. They would just blast it with water after machining. You have to get all the little chips out of the transmission block or engine. It was a difficult task. So what they've done is they put it on a robot. They started pulsing the water. They could just go and program it exactly where the dirty parts are. So this equipment of the size of a small apartment building came down to like the cubicle and using a lot less water. To sell to particularly Japanese automakers, it's a difficult and lengthy process. They had all of them knocking on their doors, wanting one of these. And so far, in 10 years, that kept 250 jobs. And this is a $200,000 R&D project. So it can result. Not everyone goes that well. But this one went, and Valiant, I don't know, you've seen the name around. They are, but most of these shops are very protective. They don't share. They don't want to talk about what they do. But they were so pleased with this that they actually published the story and allowed me. So that was a success in its own, just to get them to show it around. So yeah, that's locally that. But we do have on the website from IRAP. There's stories like this from across Canada. They're all pretty impressive what companies achieve. Now in Windsor, well, when Bill was working, Bill likely covered also, you know, Chatham, Kent, and all the Leamington. Now we have, there's two advisors besides myself. There's two advisors from Windsor, and we have two more that cover the county. So we are covering this region a lot more, and that is because there's just so much activity. It's not us, it's the companies. There's so many good companies doing things. And if you haven't heard of this program, there's a little reason to it. As I said, you know, it seems like 500 million is a lot of funds, but it isn't in the size of a program. I mentioned like the tax credit one. We cannot over promote it because then we just get busy telling companies why they're not eligible. So we have to kind of walk the fine balance of working with the right companies, the companies that innovate and grow, and still have enough time to help our targeted clients. A little bit of background from both Rob Wendt and Nick. Well, actually, Nick Dimitro was one of the founders and owner of one of the owners of Rainix, that success story. So he they sold the company, and now he decided to join. He joined the IRAP just about a year ago. Rob Wendt also, he owned it was McGill Media. It was 200 employees at this time. He sold it. He did a couple of startups, and now they're really kind of giving back more than it wasn't. They neither one of them needs this job for the salary. So it's, and, you know, they took big pay cuts. I know that, but that's sort of a you know, employees, advisors that IRAP has. They are. And even the ones in Ottawa, Toronto, you read their bios, they're all very impressive companies too. But that's sort of why the program has been successful. I think that's all I had. And it was a pleasure, really. Thank you for any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering do you find that the companies go directly to you for the programs, or are they using consultants, which seems to be a big part of the accounting for involved have divisions that do this and all that?
Well, we tend to, it can happen. It's not like we don't, it's just that what I often told companies too, like for the tax credit program, they always go to consultants. It's because it's very fixed, it's rigid, it's forms, and you have to do them right. For us, we don't work that way. That's the unique part of IRAP. We are providing consulting to advisors at no cost. It's still the company can go, but it's not really necessary. We do have, of course, there's proposal, there is some paperwork, but we will help the company. We will actually go there and help, sometimes even write portions of it, you know, for them. That's the difference. So there is consultants sometimes, very few use them for that reason, because the advisors are consultants.
If somebody can't find work trying to do IRAP consulting.
Well, the winter area is very big in tool and mold. How is it the industry changing with the electronic vehicle introductions?
Well, it is changing. I mean, with the battery plant announcement, that was like huge relief, at least in my mind. That's a huge announcement for this region, for Canada, not for this region. We have three now, one in Guelph, one in Quebec. And it's already a new cluster is forming, and how these plants work. Initially, I mean, South Korean company, they will bring everything from Asia initially, all the equipment, but they do tend to after that to you know, it's part of the Toyota manufacturing system is to minimize waste, which transportation is a waste. So they will go and get things done locally. So that battery plant is huge for this region, just for the number of machine shops. It is a change, but not already. I'll give you an example of volumes, because that project is engine blocks. They're gone. Actually, their division that was doing, and this was a bit of a scary. They lost 90% of work in 1 year because companies just stopped making new engines. They don't need to wash blocks, and you know, they need new equipment. But they very successfully, again, we helped them there too with Now they're making the battery tray automation. Or, it's actually growing faster than they had the equipment from the engine block. So it is a change. It will impact, but so far, we are fortunate. I think for our region, it's a positive one. And in West Windsor Essex also done so much work to make sure we have, and we do have a talent resources to tap into this. It's just a change of this. Another small story, because my office is inside of Windsor, in West Windsor Essex, and they told me they went to South Korea to present for the North Star is the name of the new battery plant. You can see it already. It's huge. You've driven by. There was 200 South Korean companies interested in locating here, to come to supply this plant. So it is going to spread. The benefits are. The importance of this plant is huge for the region and for Canada to keep it in the automotive sector.
Just wondering, what are your thoughts on, do you think that the local companies can transition, supply the new plant? Or do you think it's gonna be those other companies coming from outside that are putting down footprints here to supply the plant?
Well, as I mentioned, there will be a period of time where there's going to be foreign equipment coming in, but what we already, and we've seen this with Toyota Woodstock and Cambridge plant. They brought everything from Japan, but then the next round, 4 or 5 years, they are looking for local suppliers. Because they're sort of very tedious when they pick suppliers. It's like almost like developing a family member that they're really very diligent. So yes, I think that there will be, and then keep in mind for majority of the car, a lot of mold shops, they do interior plastic parts, they do exterior bumpers and that's still on the car. That's not going anywhere. So those are all safe. The ones that are impacted, the ones that are working on sort of engine and then fuel system components, we have some, but those are already aware of what's changing. A lot of them have already made plans. Even my former employee, for example, TI Automotive made fuel systems, but they already changed their business model. Now they're called I think it's not a fuel delivery, it's just like a management of sort of a thermal management. So they're making cooling systems for the batteries that they're also include liquid, it's just they can use. So the company's been very active. Everyone knows this is coming. Either we like it or not, it's coming. That's but this is a lot of projects that we would right now that we work with companies are around that to come up with. I know I'm in trouble in the 5 years, let's come up with what else can.
All of us have seen the amount of money that has been granted to these battery plants. And if you look at the amount of employment generated by it, the cost per employee is staggering. It really is. And I look at your program here, $500 million, the amount of employee growth that comes out of that. I mean, the reality is that small business is what generates the majority of employment in this country. You think that it's a little out of balance? Maybe we should be putting more money into small businesses as opposed to, chasing after a few mega projects?
I believe both work. See, without that big one, there's going to be not that many little ones. A lot of their work is to supply the multinationals. So it is an ecosystem that you cannot really disturb. I know a government gave a lot. It seems when you look at the numbers, they don't make sense. But keep in mind that what I just brought up, this isn't just that one plant. You may be talking about 200 more plants around that they're going to come, either foreign or domestic. So the benefits, I think they've estimated something like 7 times in jobs. 7, like one job at the battery plant, the result in 7 around it. Yeah, I know it's but certainly I agree with you. I'd rather, we definitely need more help for small to medium enterprises. This program is, but that's where the becoming a crown corporation hopefully will get more programs, more funding towards smaller company. It is moving there. Worldwide, the program is very unique. Other countries are trying to copy. Even US doesn't have some are like Germany has better, or Israel has maybe better programs for small companies than IRAP, but IRAP's been standing pretty high internationally as far as what we do. And yes, I agree, but then again, it's sometimes you have to look beyond just the number and headline that doesn't make sense, and you really have to get into details of why that much was. And the money, the way I don't know that much details. It's like I'm IRAP. It's not that they were given $10 billion. No, it's all staggered, and it's based on the results they're hiring. It's attached to the number of batteries they make. That's a comforting. We've made deals before, and I remember Navistar here, Ford, where the money was given and they just packed up and left. So that's a bad one. That's this one. It seems like we're learning how but it is risky. Everyone in the world was competing for those plants. So Canada winning 3, it's like huge. And when you look at what they offer in the States, the deals these companies get in the States, then you would probably understand why this was the only way to get it. So,
well, I think we learned during COVID as well, the importance of having technology here as opposed to just letting other countries have it. We didn't have any vaccines, we didn't have any masks. No. So.
No ventilators. No, that's still a challenge. I had to look at now at the chips. I myself, I ordered a car. I'm trying to get Toyota Prius, and the wait is 2 years. Toyota RAV4, 6 years. It's bizarre. I don't know who's going to wait 6 years to buy a car, but this is the supply chain issue. It's been really, it's been kind of haunting a lot of companies. It is a real issue, and the good news is a lot of it is coming back. So that's the only way to.
Do you find that whether the plant is here doesn't, it matters obviously, but for the companies you're dealing with, I'm assuming they're also dealing with other plants. For example, there was a new one announced in Indiana, new battery plant in Indiana. That's close enough to us.
Yes.
That the suppliers here may supply that plant.
Absolutely. Actually, most companies here, and it goes back to like 90% of their customers in the US. And that's just the advantage of our region, that we're so close to the border and so used to selling in US. And yeah, no, absolutely. Still, having it was same with assembly plants. We had 3 here. Now we're down to 1. It's, that's the everyone knows the benefits of a large plant, and when and this is why it's so competitive to get them. I'm if you ask me, I'm totally for getting that, because they're really drivers. It's been proven they're drivers.
Would you do the honors, Ed? Give the.
All right, Vlad, I just wanted to, on behalf of the club, I want to thank you immensely for the presentation. You're doing great work. We really appreciate it. And over here, on the table. Okay, wasn't sure. We're an environmental club, and as a token of our appreciation, I hope you accept this honey from us.
Absolutely.